Hi, and welcome to the Beer Temple. I am Chris Quinn, and it has been a while since we've done a style-specific show, so I figured the opportunity kind of arose to do a show on milds, and I hadn't done a show on milds, and I figured, well, let's talk about mild. I really like doing these style-specific shows. I am a geek for beer styles. I think there's more out there than just double IPAs and barrel-aged stouts. Don't get me wrong, I really love those beers, but there's a whole world of beer out there, and a lot of them are really awesome and great for different occasions. So mild is actually a bit of a mystery to me as well. It is not the easiest style to get your hands on. It is a very British style. It is a very pub-driven style. I'm talking again about English mild. Give a little bit of an overview of the style, and really just let it be known, I've only had a couple examples from a bottle of mild in my entire life. These are beers that are traditional English pub ales, like I mentioned before. They are low alcohol. They are meant to be drunk either from a cask or on draft, and very, very fresh. In fact, I think originally, when the style was first getting going in England, mild simply meant fresh. Well, not meant fresh, but if something was called a mild, it meant it was a very fresh beer, and that the flavors you would be getting would be derived from the freshness of the beer. Now, a lot of things as a result of that kind of defined how the style would be. I've mentioned in the past with different British beer styles that the beers are basically, when you get down to it, taxed on alcohol content. So that's why you have, or one of the reasons you have, all these quote-unquote session ales in England. Mild nowadays is the lowest alcohol, pretty much. I guess an ordinary bitter might be up there with it, of these beers. And they, because they were so fresh, they didn't need to be high alcohol to keep infection off. They were meant to be drunk very fresh before infection could set in, because higher alcohols naturally help keep off infection and bacteria, because the bacteria can't live in an alcohol-rich environment, or it's harder for them to live. So that's why the barley wines, these big ales that are meant to be aged for a long time, were higher in alcohol, and traditionally why beers that were meant to be kept were higher in alcohol. Another antibacterial in beer is hops. Hops is a natural antibacterial, and again, because these beers were meant to be drunk so fresh, they did not need to be hopped aggressively, sometimes at all. So you certainly did have some milds that were hoppy, but you didn't need to, and they often weren't, and it wasn't a primary character of the style. Finally, because they were brewed and distributed so quickly, normally for a beer you have two fermentations, I was going to say two primary fermentations, but that's not accurate. You have a primary fermentation, which is where the majority of the alcohol is created and the fermentation occurs, and then you have a secondary fermentation, and that is where, after the yeast has kind of settled down, it continues to make a little more alcohol and kind of clean itself up. Traditionally, it seems to me, like I said, it's not the easiest beer to get a whole lot of information on, and I've been reading about milds over the years, and it seems to me that often they would go right from primary fermentation, boom, get it into the hands of the publican and have them serve this very, very young beer, sometimes so young that it had not even begun or completed its secondary fermentation. You know, like many of the styles of Britain, you know, it's kind of seen its heyday. It's still quite popular, and I think only primarily popular in Britain in pubs. I don't think a lot of it is on draft or in bottles nowadays. Certainly that's not how most of it is drunk there, but it's still quite prominent. I think I read that 1 in 4, 1 in 3 bars still carries a mild, and there are some mild breweries, and in the craft renaissance, that's starting to increase a little bit, and I'm all for that. But really, it was this Victorian era is when mild saw its heyday. In fact, right on the tail end of porter's heyday, mild started coming in and kind of taking some market share from porter. The beer is typically dark and sweet. Another reason that it's sweet is because it's so low alcohol and so fresh that maybe the yeast hasn't had a chance to chew through all the sugar, so there's still some fermentables in there. I don't know. That's not really the case anymore, but I always like to look at the historical reasons that beers got to be like they are. The famous one is IPA and maybe Russian Imperial Stout, but pretty much every style has a reason that it got that way, and it's cool just to see why a style kind of became what it was. It wasn't just, well, I feel like doing this. You're getting a little bit of that nowadays in America, but historically, there was reasons that a beer ended up as it was. So anyway, mild to me, I have people come in and ask for mild a lot, and the store right now is about 8 months old. I guess maybe even going on, 8 months old, I think. And I just started carrying a mild, the first mild that I ever had, maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago. The reason is because these beers are pretty delicate. They're, like I said, meant to be drunk fresh. I consider these to be pub beers. People would come in and ask me, I want to try a mild, do you have any mild? And I say, it's one of the few styles that I just don't have. I don't have it because I haven't had any good ones in a bottle, and they're really hard to find, and it's really meant to be drunk on draft. And I said the best thing you could really do is go to a brew pub, maybe an English-inspired brew pub here in the States, find a brewer who is interested in classic English styles, and drink one. I know here in Chicago, historically, Goose Island has had a good mild from time to time, and nowadays Revolution Brew Pub here in Chicago can put on a pretty kick-ass mild. When it's done right, it is so light, bordering on like watery, but still with a wonderful sweet malt caramel flavor, a biscuity flavor that I like a lot. There are milds in places other than England. I think in Scotland they call it light. Just like you have heavy and wee heavy, there's the light, which is basically their mild, but very much a British beer. And I'm going to talk about this one. I thought this was another good time to bring it out. Kind of a beer that's been getting a lot of press is the Trooper beer. I'll get to that one in just a moment. But for those of you who just care about the Iron Maiden beer, I'm saying it a little bit late, but just skip to the end. I'm going to start out here with the Black Cat from Moorhouse. I called Moorhouse earlier today and tried to find out when this bottle was brewed. There is a brewed code on the bottle, but I am not sure what it is. I hope it's not what I think it is, because if I'm reading the bottling code correctly, it could be from October 2010. It is now September 2013. Not good. So we shall see. I have had the beer here in my store, and I have it indicated here with the received on date, because that's what I do if I really have no idea how old a beer is. I received this beer 17 days ago. So let's see. Moorehouse's Black Cat. These beers, like I said, very low alcohol. This one's coming in at 3.4. It's called a dark ruby ale with a rich, dry chocolate malt taste. Moorhouse has been brewing for a number of years. I don't know if they're one of the more traditional breweries. They might have come up with a resurgence recently. Yeah, it says it has Fuggle, Maris Otter, English ingredients. The beer is quite dark, the color of a brown ale or maybe even a porter. A little bit of a head on there. Nice looking beer. Certainly doesn't look like a beer that you would think is 3.4%. A lot of times we associate, you know, a lot of these beers that are very low alcohol with light color. Don't know why. Anyway, let's dive in here. There is certainly oxidation. I'm curious to see if it is a 3-year-old beer, because if this is a 3-year-old beer, that's 3.5%. It's held up fairly well. I am getting, you know, a little bit of that cardboard, wet paper note to it. But underlying it, there is a chocolate element to it. More like a dusted cocoa powder. Really trying to get in there and get past the oxidation. Yeah, kind of like a dark caramel and some cocoa. Let's see what we got here. Very light, pretty oxidized, tastes like paper, really lacking that malt note, just a hint of bitterness, really not much to speak of. Very nice mouthfeel, I will say that. You know, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. And it does have a bit of a dusty chocolate edge to it, like a cocoa powder edge to it. Not the freshest example of a beer I've ever had on this show, but I'm curious, and maybe if I find out soon, I can put a little graphic down at the bottom of when this beer was brewed. You know, I'm gonna go 82 with this beer. It's fine, but I do like that kind of chocolatey finish to it. Maybe that's a little harsh. I don't know. I'll say 82. That's fine. Doesn't really matter anyway, does it? So that's a shame. The first mild I brought into the store, and it's old. Oh well. Another thing I think that is fair to say at the store is, hey, listen, this is what mild is like in America. If you're gonna buy mild from a bottle, this is what you expect. Unless you have some sort of special, crazy, limited new release from a heavy metal band from Britain who wants to make a beer for one reason or another. I'll tell you the truth, I didn't really care about the Iron Maiden beer. I'm not a huge Iron Maiden fan. I'm sorry if that offends anyone. I don't have anything against them. But that's not why I brought in this beer. I brought the beer in because it was a mild that I figured we could get fresh. This one does have a bottling code, and according to the bottling code, this beer is from July. In fact, yeah, it is from mid-July. It is now September, so July, August, September. So we're a couple months old, certainly not 3 or 4 days old, but hey, this is about as good as it gets in terms of a traditional English mild here and freshness that you can expect in the States. So for anyone who wants to try a mild, whether I like this beer or not, go and get the Trooper now. I'll try to put this online soon so you can try it. This is going to be a good example of a mild that you can get. It's also from a traditional mild brewery, a brewery that's been, I think, brewing this style of beer since Victorian times when it was most popular. A family-run brewery, Robertson's brewery in England, Stockport, Cheshire, UK. So I guess the singer for Iron Maiden, who goes by the name of, I'm sorry, I should know this, but it is Bruce Dickinson. That's right, Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden apparently is a big fan of traditional ale and real ale. And if you don't know what real ale is, go and watch the Real Ale show I had with 2 real ale experts here in Chicago. And I guess they wanted to make a beer, or somebody approached them about making a beer, and rather than just going with a pale lager like so many people have done before, and just kind of phoning it in, he said, yeah, and I'm gonna make a traditional English beer, the kind of beer that I like and love. I think that's really cool. I think not phoning it in is really cool. It's gonna get a little loud here, I apologize. So the beer is called Trooper. It's named after a song of theirs, which is again inspired by the Charge of the Light Brigade, which was I guess a charge during the Battle of Balaclava. Yikes, not Baklava. Oh my God, that's embarrassing. Yeah, the Battle of Baklava. Jesus. Sorry, guys. I'm sorry to everyone who I just offended. Oof. And to the soldiers. All right, the Battle of Balaclava in 1854. So, you know, multiple levels, a very meta beer here. A beer inspired by a song that was inspired by a battle. And I'm going to give myself a little rinse because I want to get some of this out of here. And I'm going to give myself a little pour here. This beer is a little bit lighter. We've got like a tawny amber copper color. Nice head of foam here, sticking around pretty well. Completely different smell to this beer. Toffee, oranges, red apples, a little bit of a biscuity note, like a toasted biscuit. But really, it's a kind of caramelized orange. Really nice. Really lovely smelling beer. 4.7, so this is a little bit stronger than a traditional mild would be. Still certainly low alcohol by American standards. You're not getting a ton of hop presence here. It's about the malt. And it smells really good. He's a real Cascade hops. Golding and Cascade hops. Maybe that's where some of the orange is coming from. Same mouthfeel here. A little bit of oxidation that will happen on these big container ships. They're hot and they're jostling around, aerating the beer, you know, getting oxygen in there. It's clean. It's not sweet, surprisingly. It's got those same kind of grainy orange notes. The caramel and biscuit from the nose come across as a little bit more of a harsh grain here. I think the oxidation isn't helping with that. I think some of those toffee flavors have perhaps dropped out a little bit as a result of contact with oxygen. And there is a nice little bite at the back end as well. The, like I said, mouthfeel is reminiscent of the Moorhouse, so it is light, aqueous, if you will. You know, I'm not gonna lie and say that there is no papery oxidative note here. I would like to find this one on keg somewhere, see if it's held up a little bit better. It's an interesting beer. I like this beer quite a bit more. I'm gonna go 87 or 80. I'll go 87 plus. It's in between 87 and 88. It's quite a bit better. The nose is a 90 plus nose. It's that oxidative note that hurts it on such a fragile beer. The oxidation hurts it, and you need those really wonderful caramel biscuity notes in these beers. And I'm kind of reaffirming why I don't have these beers in stock very often. That said, the Trooper is absolutely worth picking up if you're interested in the style and don't have access to a brewpub version of it or want to see how accurate your local brewpub's mild may be. And hey, it's just cool to try some of these beers, actual British milds. You know, one of them only a couple months old. So There you have it, guys. Thank you so much. A lot of gift beers are going to be making their way on the show soon. I think I'm going to double down on my promise to get out more episodes. I've been doing better, and I promise to increase doing these shows and getting them out to you. Thanks so much for the comments. The comments on the site have been wonderful. Please feel free to leave your comments on craftbeertemple.com or on Facebook, or you can give me an email or call the store. People do that too. That's absolutely fine. If you're in the area, stop on by. I always have beers open to try. And we have a Beer of the Month Club coming up too. Actually, we already have it. If you're very interested, you can call. If not, we're going to have it online for purchase soon. That's about it. I'm rambling a little bit. But today was a good day. It's a hot, sweltering day here in Chicago, and I got to try 2 beers I had never had before from a style I've had very little of and have been intrigued by. Thanks one more time. I can't say it enough, guys. So much. Yeah, until next time, I've got some traditional beers to drink, and I hope that you do too.